I feel like I'm kind of going crazy here, and I might be saying something that every single one of you already knows, but this is a completely new revelation I've had. Since I've read the Old Testament, my understanding of what it means to fear God has completely changed. And in fact, until I read the Old Testament, I thought of fearing God in the same way as how you might fear your dad when you were growing up as a kid. You know, that feeling that you would get when you got in trouble at school or something, and your mom's talking to you or whoever's talking to you, and they say, "Wait till your father gets home." Then that fear that overcomes you, like, "Oh, he's gonna be mad. I'm gonna get in trouble," right? But then like you'll be okay afterwards. Well, that is not the type of fear of God we're supposed to have. God is a jealous God. He is full of anger and wrath righteously, right? But he's also full of mercy and grace and love. And the cool thing is that we get to decide which of those we receive. If we want mercy and grace and love, then we have to do what he says. We have to be obedient to him. We have to put our faith in him and trust in him and love him. If we do that, he will love us back. He will show us mercy. He will show us grace. But if we decide to judge his children or do evil things or turn away from him, well, guess what we're getting? Read the Old Testament, you'll see for yourself. So, as I'm having this revelation, I'm getting in the New Testament and I'm reading Matthew 5. And almost everybody's heard about Matthew 5. This is the Sermon on the Mount. But I'm reading through the Beatitudes, and this is the first line of it is, God blesses those who are poor and realize their needs for him. And I realize this translation is different than many, but then it continues on. God blesses those who mourn, for they will be comforted. He blesses those who are humble. He blesses those who hunger and thirst for justice. He blesses those who are merciful, and so on and so forth. And I've always read those or heard them. I haven't really read them. I've heard this a ton of times in church. And as I'm listening, I've always heard it in the sense of, yeah, God blesses these people, right? Those poor people living in tents on the street. They realize their need for him, or people that are mourning the death of the loved one. I've always thought about it in the third person, I guess is the best way to put it. And I've also thought about it in that God blesses them, like he'll take care of them. Like he will make sure that the poor are no longer poor one day. They just have to wait on his timing, whatever. I never really understood it until now. I'm reading through this, and again, this might be old news to you guys, but this revelation just came over me like a pile of bricks. But as I'm reading through this is God speaking directly to me and to you and everybody. This is for every single person. And what I did is I highlighted most of this, but I took out the God blesses part because that, I think, to me, that was distracting. I think there's a lot of nuance there, and there's a lot of deeper meaning to the words on this page. And so I'm not saying that these words should be removed, but in order for me to understand what God is telling me and telling you and everybody else, we need to kind of dissect the words. So when I read this, instead of saying God blesses those who are poor, what I'm reading is the poor realize their need for him. And that's not just how much money you have, because God tells us that it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than to get into the kingdom of heaven. But being poor is irrelevant because we all own nothing. Everything is given to us from God. It's just easier to understand that when you don't have a bunch of materialistic stuff. The more materialism you have, the more you become self-reliant or reliant on things like money. And it's harder to understand that it's all from God anyway. So even if you are very wealthy, you have a lot of money, a lot of stuff, if you have the heart of a poor person, then this will apply to you, right? You will realize your need for him, regardless of how much money you have. And then it continues on. Those who mourn will be comforted. And again, I've always thought, man, those poor people that are mourning all the time. It's like, well, no one's perpetually mourning. This is for everybody. What he's telling me is like, when I'm mourning, when I'm sad, he's there with me. And then it says those, he will bless those who are humble. But again, I'm just reading this, and what God is telling me is, be humble and you will inherit the whole earth. When you hunger and thirst for justice, you will be satisfied. And really what that means to me is, look at everything going on with the world right now. There is a lot of evil in the world. Everything going on with Epstein, right? I see all these videos of people going, we need to bring back the death penalty. We need to find these people in jail and throw them in jail. It's like, I might agree with a lot of that. But ultimately, I also know that God tells us and he promises us that we will all have to face him for judgment one day. And knowing that and trusting in that, I will be satisfied, and I am satisfied. But if you don't have that trust in God, then yes, you'll be perpetually angry, and you'll feel personally attacked and hurt because these people just get to walk around scot-free. But God tells us that justice will be served, and that is very satisfying to me. And he says God blesses those who are merciful. Well, I mean, how many times do you think about times where you're merciful? I don't run into a lot of instances where I feel like I need to be merciful, but when I do, he tells me if I'm merciful to a person, I'll be shown mercy. And then, by the way, with all of these, there's an inverse to it, right? If I'm not merciful, he's not going to show me mercy. If I'm not humble, I will not inherit the earth. And if I just choose not to mourn because I'm evil and wicked, and I don't care that somebody died, he is not going to comfort me when I need him, right? And I don't want to go through all of these, but I actually want to skip down to Matthew 5, and then now this is Matthew 5:13. And this says, you are the salt of the earth, but what good is it? And I want to pause there. Every time I've heard this or read it up on a screen, I've really focused on that part. God telling us that we're the salt of the earth. And that's where my brain kind of stops. Like, okay, that means I have to go out and like point people towards Jesus. And while that's true, the next part I've never focused on. The next part, this is the fear of God part that I think, especially in our Western culture, we just skip over. And what it says is, what good is salt if it has lost its flavor? It's meaning that, okay, we're Christians, but if we go out in the world and we don't act like it, then what good is that? And he says, can you make it salty again? And that's a question. I think it's important to think on that. But this is the next line that I understand completely differently. God says, it will be thrown out and trampled underfoot as worthless. So what is God telling us here? He's saying, okay, we are his people. If you're a Christian, you are the salt of the earth. But if you don't act like it, he is going to trample over you because you are worthless. I mean, that's pretty harsh. We all think of God as this, soft-handed, loving, caring God that's like, you just do you, you'll be forgiven. No, God tells us that he's going to trample over us if we don't do our job. I mean, we're getting a commandment from God. And none of us, I shouldn't say none of us, a lot of us don't take that seriously. And so anyways, I would highly recommend read through Matthew 5 and try to read it as if Jesus is speaking directly to you and just telling you all of these things and how they're going to translate in your life. And I think the importance of all of the words that I didn't highlight in here are very important. There's so much nuance to what God's saying because it is more than just what I'm saying as far as, God blesses those, because I really do believe that when you are truly running after God, he does bless you. But really breaking it down and deconstructing it to he's telling you how the world works and how he operates if you run after him. So I'm getting a little long-winded here, but I don't know. I had this revelation and it kind of was like blew my mind. It might be silly. This might be something you guys have all already known and felt, but for me, this is completely new. So love you all. Keep reading, and we'll see you soon.